Names that come to mind that revolutionise gaming, and in the FPS genre more specifically, are games like Halo Combat Evolved. It was developed by Bungie and published by Microsoft and was released back in 2001 as a launch title for the original Xbox. The game wasn't just successful, it also blew everyone's expectations out of this world. It garnered universal acclaim from critics and gamers alike. It was one of the biggest reasons why Xbox is a brand today and what it has become now. Most shooters after Halo can trace its roots of inspiration back to this original game. It was one of the reasons that paved the way for future shooters to be brought to consoles and not just remain on PC. It opened up opportunities to experience high quality narratives in video games and made Master Chief the face of the Xbox. Enough can't be said for how influential this game is and how great it still is. You can bring up the sales and reviews, and all the Halo content and merchandise that is out there or in development can be attributed back to this game. And it seems criminal to call Halo Combat Evolved anything other than a masterpiece. With the highly anticipated release of Halo Infinite in December and the 20th anniversary of Xbox, the Halo franchise, and this game, what could possibly be a better time to take a trip down memory lane and revisit the game that started it all? With its phenomenal story, its iconic themes, simple but effective characters, the fine-tuned gameplay, the amazing presentation, and of course, its brilliant soundtrack. I was actually first introduced to the series from my dad, who owned a limited edition copy of Halo 2, which I played with him a lot as a kid. And I remember walking past my local EB Games and seeing Halo Combat Evolved for the original Xbox on sale, and asking my dad if we could get it as I'd never played the first one. Just like Halo 2, I was hooked from the moment I started playing it. I played countless hours of Halo games solo and with friends, and it's only since I've gotten older that I've really learned to sit back and analyse and appreciate how and why the series has become so magnificent. All roads from this franchise lead back to Halo Combat Evolved. 2001 was a time where video game storytelling was in its infancy. Games wouldn't have a story, and if they did have one, they usually wouldn't offer too much. Halo not only offers a story, it offers a fantastic story on a grand scale, and that had the potential to expand upon for future installments. Halo is set in the 26th century in a science fiction universe, and humanity has advanced to interstellar travel and has colonized other planets in the galaxy. Upon discovering interstellar travel, humanity came across a united alien faction known as the Covenant, who seek to destroy all of humanity. The Human Covenant War has been going on for around about 3 decades, and humanity is on the brink of losing the war. This is shown in the opening cutscene of the game. Speaking of which, Halo opens and immediately shows us what's important to the story. We see the Halo ring orbiting a planet in the very first shot, and the ship that we see at the start of the game comes into view, which is also known as the Pillar of Autumn. We're given some simple yet intriguing exposition about escaping from the Covenant, only to be tracked by them. Captain Keyes, the captain of the Pillar of Autumn, orders all Marines to get to their stations to prepare for battle. In preparation for battle, we're shown in just a few short moments the camaraderie and the courage that the human faction, the UNSC, have, and a great speech by our boy, Sergeant Johnson.
It is our job to finish what the Fly Boys started. We are leaving this ship platoon and engaging the Covenant on solid ground. When we meet the enemy, we will rip their skulls from their spines and toss them away laughing. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am. Now move it out! Double time!
Whilst Marines are getting into their battle stations, some operators awaken the biggest weapon that the UNSC has to offer as defense, the Master Chief, aka you, the player. Chief is the pinnacle of badass, as he's a Spartan, one of the last super soldiers who are enhanced humans bred for war. Depending on the difficulty, you are either taken through a quick tutorial or you are immediately thrown into some action. Chief runs through the ship unarmed, and the player through his eyes gets to see what the Covenant are capable of. The Covenant have begun boarding the Pillar of Autumn and are overwhelming the Marines. Chief is escorted by a Marine to the bridge to meet with Keyes about the situation at hand. As the meeting begins, we're told that things aren't going well as an explosion hits the ship and the primary defense of the Autumn has been vanquished. Keyes then initiates a protocol to abandon the ship and is going to attempt to land the Autumn on the Halo ring, not knowing what it is at the time. Keyes also gives Chief the responsibility of guarding and securing the ship's AI, Cortana. If Cortana is captured by the Covenant, they would learn battle plans, tactics, weapons, research, and the location of Earth. We're shown the gravity of the situation and the consequences of what would happen if we were to fail. Chief takes Cortana and she acts as a guide for the player throughout most of the game. Other than the cutscenes, Chief is a silent protagonist, whilst Cortana is not. This shows that when Cortana talks, she isn't just talking to Chief, but she is also talking to the player. Chief and Cortana make a narrow escape in the last lifeboat after fighting hordes of Covenant. The only place to land was the Halo ring, and as they escape, the Autumn gets hit by the Covenant and accelerates into the ring's atmosphere, where you soon follow. You crash on the Halo ring, being the only survivor, and the moment that Chief stepped out of the lifeboat back in 2001, gaming changed forever. The Halo ring is the focus of the story, and although that you play as the Master Chief, it isn't all about him. You will experience the story through him, but I mean, the game is called Halo for a reason. You were tasked with evading the Covenant and regrouping with survivors to form a resistance as you are now stranded on the ring. It has a lot of Earth-like environments, but there is still so much mystery surrounding it, with structures that don't seem to be natural.
This cave is not a natural formation. Someone built it.
Upon rescuing survivors, you learn that Keyes has been captured by the Covenant and is being held above one of their ships, the Truth and Reconciliation. Upon this discovery, you and the survivors of the Autumn board the ship and rescue Keyes from the clutches of the Covenant. Upon rescuing Keyes, we find out that the ring that we're on is called Halo and is some sort of weapon. It's believed that the Covenant intend to use this weapon against humanity, and the mission becomes to secure the control center of Halo before the Covenant. They don't know what this weapon is or what it's designed to do, but in good time, all factions will realize that they're all in way over their heads. Some of the most amazing things to consider about this story, and this game overall, is neither Bungie or Microsoft knew if this game would be a hit or a massive flop. So the story is intentionally self-contained, with potential for expanding upon. It was the right move, and it all paid off, as the pacing is really well executed and the expansion in future games, movies, books, novels, and even terminals in the remaster add on to the already spectacular scale. These aren't essential to understand or even enjoy Combat Evolved, but it's there for people who want more, and that's exactly what games should always have. Common criticisms I've heard over the years from the game is that you don't find out much about the Master Chief, or the Spartan program, the Covenant, or even Reach. In the opening cutscene, if we had an entire recap of where humanity is at now and the backstory of Reach, and the Spartan program, and the Covenant, I think it would have taken away from the importance of the situation at hand and the threat that the Covenant faced, as well as the stakes. What a narrative should always focus on is what's important and what does the audience desperately need to know. Chief is also a husk for the player to embody, to make you feel like a part of the story, part of something bigger. Uncovering the mystery of Halo, it's supposed to make the player feel special. You play through the events rather than watching a movie, as it's a medium that a game can have, but not so much a movie. The story is rather simple, but it's based around a setting as opposed to mainly the characters. It's good that the game doesn't reveal everything at once, as it keeps the people guessing, and the pacing is more gradual, and it flows better because of this. It's not my favourite narrative in the series, but it certainly is one of my favourites in the series. Halo's controls aren't good, they aren't bad, they aren't great, they aren't awful, they're near perfect. This is amazing, as the player is in better control of their own fate, and when they die or make a mistake, 99% of the time, it's their own fault. And don't you worry, I'll get to that 1% pretty soon. You know that the control is nailed, as you won't be thinking about it when playing. And you have to understand that this was a huge deal back in 2001, as no one thought that shooters could be done so masterfully on console. If you remember the Duke controller for when the Xbox came out, it was a laughingstock. Kinda rightfully so in some aspects. not just for how ridiculously huge it was, but the idea of 2 thumbsticks on one controller was just unheard of at the time. It made games more accessible to those who didn't have a PC, and, well, still does to this day. Halo set a precedent for how shooters, and more specifically FPS games, should handle on console. Think of all the FPS games nowadays. How similar are the controls? Do they have regenerating health? Do they allow 2 weapons to carry? And how similar is the button mapping? That's how revolutionary this game is. You were also given different options for button mapping if you didn't like the default layout. Halo creates one of the most fun, balanced and fair FPS games in its gameplay that I've ever seen and have ever had the pleasure of playing. I'd even argue that it's the best in the Halo series so far. I've played many hours of each Halo game and have finished each campaign on Legendary Co-op and Legendary Solo multiple times, so I do have some sort of idea about what I'm talking about. Halo is a game that rewards good strategy and punishes poor strategy. Halo Combat Evolved on Legendary is a game that is very hard, but also very fair and is incredibly satisfying to complete. There's a fine line between fair and an unfair difficulty. Look no further than Halo 2 on Legendary.
Your new armor shields are extremely resilient, very efficient.
Like this shit, I didn't even get to see my fucking crosshair before I spawned in and died. You can alter your playstyle in CE to fit the challenge. No one strategy is the best strategy. So, the 1% I was referring to when it comes to unfair is rocket launcher flood. Fuck right off, you bastard. Anything that can kill you instantly needs to be very clearly visible with an audio or visual cue with enough time to react. The other annoying thing, which is still really funny but stupid, is tapping a vehicle with the slightest bit of momentum and that kills you instantly. I give this one a pass though, it was the first game despite it being very annoying on Legendary, but also funny at times. Other complaints I've heard can come down to copy-pasted level design, which I can really understand, as especially with levels like the library, but for the most part I can look the other way, as each of the encounters in each levels that reuse level assets are very different. Speaking of encounters, let's talk about the enemies, the AI, and the Covenant. The Covenant are made up of many different alien factions. Grunts act as the cannon fodder, which are generally weaker enemies, but if you're not careful, they can and will overwhelm you, and will tend to run away if you take out their chain of command. Jackals have shields and can be very good at holding a position and potentially even pinning you down, so precision weapons or grenades are very viable. Elites are essentially your equals, as they are usually the chain of command in ground forces and have energy shields just like you. They can be invisible, wield energy swords, and in later stages will throw grenades like grunts. They're smart and strong and in packs and will put up a very strong fight. Hunters are like mini-bosses that roam in packs. They have a fuel rod cannon and a strong melee that is very dodgeable, and they have a one-hit exploit with a pistol or a sniper rifle when shot in the back. The Flood are generally easy to take down alone, but in swarms they can easily outclass and overwhelm you as they carry weapons, melee you, and have infection forms that get onto you or carriers that explode near you. Each encounter will require you to use a different strategy. Plasma weapons can be extremely useful against the Covenant and Sentinel enemies, aside from the Hunters, but not so great against the Flood. Snipers are also great against almost all types of enemies and vehicles, but are very useless against the Flood. Rocket launchers are very strong, but have limited ammo capacity. Combining the use of 2 weapons makes the player think and prepare for each encounter, and not using one strategy to cruise through all of the level. There's always more than one way to get the job done. AI was revolutionary for the time too, such as when you drive around in a vehicle, enemies will dodge out of the way, so you'll have to adjust your driving to hit them, and the same with throwing grenades. If you don't see your enemies on the radar, you can listen into their footsteps or audio cues, such as grunts announcing that they're about to throw a grenade. Enemies aren't always fighting, sometimes they're on patrol, or grunts might be taking a nap. When they notice you, they'll stop and alert the rest of the squad that they see you. These things make the game excellent, but also fair. You have a health bar that you can manage too by picking up health packs. You have a shield as a buffer in case you make a mistake. So you're still given a bit of experimentation rather than just instant death most of the time. Playing the game on higher difficulties can also change the enemies, such as elite ranks on levels may be increased or even more waves. You also have power-ups that you can manage throughout certain levels that can help you get through tougher spots, like overshields or active camo. What I love so much about Combat Evolved is the non-linear level design. You can also explore practically anywhere, and there's even videos on YouTube showing players getting to places that I never thought were possible. It's crazy what people have been able to figure out over the years, and it's something that I wish shooters nowadays did more, and even later Halo games did. The level design is paced incredibly well too, as you aren't immediately shown everything. It's in the later levels that you see things like vehicles, hunters, and other weapons like the sniper. It allows the player to experiment with what they have in front of them rather than just picking a favourite straight away. The game makes you feel invested and open to more, such as the Truth and Reconciliation encourages stealth. There's no pistol on this mission as the developers want you to learn how to use the sniper. Talking more about the repetitive level design, people can sometimes be divided and think the game is great until levels like the library. I completely understand that, but as I mentioned before, encounters become different with each enemy, and you even explore new areas in the new levels. Sure, if you cut the copy-pasted rooms, it'd make the game feel more unique, but the game would be much shorter and the pacing would suffer from it. Other than the library, I think the other levels are still very solid, though the library is important from a narrative standpoint. The elements that I appreciate from the library is when you're being overwhelmed by the flood and feeling the fear of being overrun. Gameplay is some of Halo's greatest assets, and one thing that I think may be on par or even surpass the gameplay is its stunning presentation. In my opinion, there's a timeless quality about the original Halo graphics. By today's standards, they're obviously dated, but for 2001, these were incredible. I can still sit back and appreciate the charm that the original has. It isn't even so much of the character models that I love, I just love the atmosphere that each level has. Some of the best storytelling in the game is shown to the player by the levels alone. The second level is purposely huge, and in terms of presentation, it acts as a means for you to feel small, that you're part of something much bigger. Chief being a silent protagonist is a stroke of genius as it lets the players connect with the Chief. The story isn't about his past, it's about his journey on the Halo ring. Chief is supposed to be a flat character as this style of storytelling is presented exclusively to games. You also have other perspectives such as Cortana, who as I mentioned before talks to Chief throughout the game, but she's also simultaneously guiding you. The whole game is based around the mysterious Halo ring and what exactly it is. It's amazing how this Earth-like environment can be so beautiful, but can also hold some of the most unimaginable horrors, as we'll find out. The presentation reflects discovery around the ring, and action-packed conflicts that contrast the quieter parts of the game. Each weapon has a distinctive look, feel, and sound to them, and like Dead Space, there are elements of the Alien franchise seen in the Halo franchise. One of the biggest things that I think really got overlooked in some of the later Halo games, particularly after Halo 3 to a degree, were the Marines. When playing through the original trilogy, the Marines that encounter you are always so relieved to see you and will help any way they can. They show respect and treat the Chief like a badass, in turn treating the player like a badass. Something that got echoed in the later Halo games was sometimes changing the difficulty could also change the presentation, such as different dialogue or even bonus endings. The sound design is nothing short of spectacular, and Halo has always excelled in this department. It's amazing that when you hear some of these sound effects, you know immediately what they are, such as the energy shields recharging, a plasma pistol charge, or the voices of elites. The cinematography is also something that I really appreciate, as it shows some of the most iconic shots and set pieces in the entire series, such as the very first shot of the game. The tone is something that varies from level to level, but the game stays overly consistent with its themes. There's one level that does this amazingly, but I'll talk about that a bit later. The lighting in certain levels like 343 Guilty Spark that just create a sense of dread and horror, which is appropriate given the context of the level. I thought I'd mention this. Whilst I absolutely love the anniversary remaster of Halo Combat Evolved and play it with its graphics very often, I can't help but think that they lost some of the intent and storytelling that was in the original with what the original was going for. The graphics are very far from bad. I think they look great, but they lack the consistency with the original vision at times. But then again, it's all up to interpretation. Each level presents something new, and doing so keep the player's interest. The first level shows a corridor shooting style gameplay, whilst the next level opens and encourages exploration and the use of vehicles, and Assault on the Control Room encourages vehicle combat. Fighting enemies on multiple fronts is something that I absolutely love to see as well. Seeing the Covenant, the Flood, and the Sentinels all go at it makes the story feel a lot bigger, and makes you feel like you're heading towards a massive crunch. I can't talk about Halo's presentation without mentioning the iconic, superb, and masterpiece that is the soundtrack. Halo might just have some of the greatest music ever put to a video game. Marty O'Donnell deserves all the praise he gets. The man is a genius. You could make an argument for why you think one of his soundtracks from one of the Halo games is the best of the bunch. That theme with the monk chant is just amazing, and you best believe I have sung it in a bathroom and played it on the piano. The game also doesn't constantly play music, which is a good thing, as the moments when you hear the music, it makes it all the more meaningful and impactful. The dialogue is also fantastic, as there's always a sense of urgency to what's at stake. Whilst the voice acting in the game isn't my favourite out of all the Halo games, it still does do a great job. Lots of love for Steve Downes, Jen Taylor, Pete Stacker, Tim Dadabo, Dave Scully, and of course, Jeff Steitzer.
Double kill.
This game planted all of the right seeds to expand upon, and the presentation is one of the biggest contributing factors as to why that is. Now, you're probably wondering why I haven't covered the full story of the game, and especially the levels like 343 Guilty Spark, like I did in my Bioshock review, which you should definitely all go watch by the way. I'm going to be doing a spoiler section as well as a bit more of an analysis. I'll be doing a time skip on the video, but the game has been out for 20 years, so I'd be quite surprised if you haven't heard the twist. You have been warned, either way. Upon finding out that Halo is a super weapon, the UNSC want to use it against the Covenant before the Covenant can use it on them. You find out through Cortana, who accesses the data on the ring, about a map room that can lead to Halo's control center. Once you find said map room, it leads you to the control center underneath the main surface of the ring to reveal a giant glacier-like environment. You battle through the control room and give Cortana access to it. Cortana begins to access the knowledge and the history of the ring, but then a sense of dread and fear surrounds Cortana that we've never seen before.
This ring, it's Forerunner. Give me a second to access. Yes, the Forerunner built this place, what they called a fortress world, in order to... Wait. No, that can't be. Oh, those Covenant fools. They must have known. There must have been signs.
Slow down. You're losing me.
The Covenant found something. Buried in this ring. Something horrible. And now, they're afraid.
Something buried? Where?
The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Keys?
The weapons cache he's looking for. It's not really... We can't let him get inside.
I don't understand.
There's no time. Get out of here, find keys, stop him. Before it's too late!
At this point, you haven't been separated from Cortana ever before, and you're left to put the pieces together by yourself, and this is where some of the greatest storytelling happens in the game. The next few levels change everything about the story. The next level opens with the Covenant on the run, but they're not on the run from the UNSC, as we see our Pelican dropships are down and we hear messages over the intercoms about some serious sounds and gunfire.
Dropship Victor 9, pillar of bottom. We are under attack by some new kind of hostile Covenant. Captain Keys has been captured by hostiles. Dug in at a large structure in a swamp. We can hold out. Please. I will send this message to repeat at intervals. Dropship Victor 933 clear.
Chief keeps heading through the dark and unsettling swamp until he sees gunfire coming out of an entrance of what seems to be some sort of structure. It wasn't coming from the UNSC, and it wasn't coming from the Covenant as they were running scared. It's here where you begin to realise that something really isn't right. You head into the structure onto an elevator and you head down into what seems to be some sort of research lab, or containment field. You run into a Marine who shoots you and tells you not to turn him into one of those things. You see blood from Marines and Covenant all throughout the stage, and you're wondering, what in the hell could have done this? In fact, there aren't even any elites in this level. You make it to a door and find a Marine who collapses into your arms and dies. You grab his helmet and play back a recording of what he encountered. Keyes and the team believed that they were finding some sort of weapons cache that they could use against the Covenant, but what they found was something far more sinister and nightmarish than they could possibly imagine.
Why do we always have to listen to this old stuff, Sarge?
Watch your mouth, son. This stuff is your history. It should remind you grunts what we're fighting to protect.
Hey, if the Covenant want to wipe out this particular part of my history, that's fine by me.
Yeah, better it than us.
You ask them real nice next time you see them, Vicente. I'm sure they'll be happy to oblige.
LZ looks clear. I'm bringing us down.
Go, go, go! Stay close, Jenkins! Mendoza, move it up! Wait here for the captain and his squad, then get your ass inside.
Sir!
Okay, let's move!
Which is weird, right? I mean, look at it. Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant?
Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA.
Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir. But it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. I got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something.
Sarge, can you hear me?
What's going on, soldier?
He's got contact. Lots of them. But they're not Covenant. They're just tearing through us. What the clown? No!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that? Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira! Hold still! Hold still!
Let him have it. Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local!
Jenkins!
They were overrun by a parasitic race known as the Flood. It then hits you. This is indeed the only enemy that the Covenant fear, and all of the elites are gone in this level because they've all been turned into Flood. You fight your way through hordes to find Covenant and Marines helpless against the Flood under no leadership. The elevator malfunctions and takes you deeper into the facility. You continue to fight your way through when you see the blood and green Flood spores leaking throughout. You head back to the top and regroup with some Marines and begin fending off more Flood. You become isolated from the squad and meet an AI construct who monitors the ring. 343. Guilty Spark. Spark claims to want to help contain the Flood outbreak and needs your help, a reclaimer to activate Halo's defenses. So, he teleports you to a place called the Library to retrieve the activation index, the key to operating Halo, not before going through hundreds of waves of Flood. What the Flood lack in basic battle tactics, they make up for in strength and numbers, and that's what makes them scary. Why he didn't just teleport you to the top to retrieve the index really bothers me in terms of narrative, and especially, and I mean especially, in terms of gameplay. I do appreciate aspects of the level, but it's easily one of the weakest in the game due to how repetitive the layouts and encounters are. Once you reach the index, Spark then teleports you back to the control room to activate the ring. There are some things about Halo that you really don't understand, and everyone is way in over their heads, as we're about to find out.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throats.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
Yes. Activate Halo's defenses and destroy the Flood, which is why we brought the index to the control center.
You mean this?
A construct in the core? That is absolutely unacceptable.
Sod off!
What impertinence! I shall purge you at once.
You sure that's a good idea?
How dare you? I'll...
Do what? I have the index. You can just float and sputter.
Enough! The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood. It kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the Flood. But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
Left out that little detail, did he?
This, combined with the Flood, makes the twist excellent. Not only is the Halo ring a beautiful Earth-like place, but it's also the ultimate weapon in the entire galaxy designed to wipe out everyone that has a nervous system. And it's just too bad that humanity is full of nervous systems. Halo is a weapon that is used for absolute containment, and nor humanity nor the Covenant can use the weapon to wipe out one without wiping out each other. The mission changes and becomes clear. To destroy the Flood and the Covenant, we have to destroy Halo at all costs. Chief and Cortana regroup and begin fighting a war on all fronts. The UNSC, the Flood, the Sentinels, and the Covenant are all battling it out, and you can help take one side out, or take them all out, or even let them take each other out. This is the approach that I absolutely love in these later levels. You begin making damages to the ring to distract Spark for repairs, and Cortana uses this teleportation grid to get you to Keys, who has neural implants to power the Pillar of Autumn. Your primary mission becomes to blow up the Pillar of Autumn to generate a blast large enough to destroy the ring. Keys contacts us and warns us to stay away, and is in some unfathomable pain. after a setback from falling out of the Truth and Reconciliation, we see that the Flood have infected the entire ship and are trying to find a way to leave the ring and go and spread themselves around to other worlds. They must be stopped here. Chief reaches Keyes to see that the Flood have brutally murdered him and turned him and other bodies into a mass that begins coordinating the Flood better, a proto-gravemind. Chief reluctantly punches through the mass and grabs the implants and flees the ship. Chief heads to the Pillar of Autumn's crash site and narrowly lands it. It's nice to have a bit of humour in the more serious moments.
This thing is falling apart.
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it.
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Chief looks around and sees the ship in serious decay and the war on all fronts continues. Chief makes it to the bridge to start the self-destruct sequence, only to have Spark stop the countdown. He's not letting anyone destroy the ring. Chief then comes up with an alternative solution.
I don't know what to do.
How much firepower would you need to crack one of the engine's shields?
Not much. A well-placed grenade, perhaps, but why?
As you'd come to expect, shooting his way out of things is kind of his norm. He gets ambushed by sentinels, but narrowly escapes, and heads to the engine room to blow it to Kingdom Come. Once overloading the engines, Cortana sends you for immediate evac from Echo 419 as you make the final Warthog run. This must be one of the most iconic moments in the series, and it's executed perfectly. You drive to the evac zone only to see Echo 419 shot down by Banshees. Gotta make it count for them, so Cortana leads you to a shipping bay to find a longsword docked and ready for flight. In a desperate last sprint, Chief makes it and flies off the ring away from the blast radius of the ring as it blows to bits. Cortana scans for life forms, only to find nothing and claims that Halo is finished.
Halo. It's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
And Chief was absolutely right. This game is a masterpiece. Even without the countless sales, ports, sequels, spin-offs, and the books that this has spawned, the story on itself is still fantastic. It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger. It's about mystery, discovery, and unforeseen horrors. The Chief is undoubtedly the face of the franchise and the mascot for Xbox, and a worthy competitor to other video game mascots like Mario or Sonic. The gameplay is so incredibly balanced, and just about all of the enemies are fun and satisfying to fight. Some vehicle physics may be dated, but each are still fun to use. The levels are so iconic and a blast to play in and fight in. And then there's the library. The dialogue and the voice acting are great, the lines are memorable, the setting is still fantastic, and I wish more games, more Halo games, focus more on the Halo rings, but it looks like Infinite is heading for that direction. The sound design is top notch, and of course, the soundtrack is timeless. Marty, we love ya. This game changed the way we play video games. This game brought billions upon billions of hours of entertainment. This game helped launch the Xbox as a brand. This game is 20 years old and is still an absolute masterpiece.